All right, so welcome back, everybody. So for this video, I'm going to share with you guys my top 10 favorite Red Raven games. Um, I did this 4 years ago. 4 years ago, I did a top 10 video, or should I say 3 videos, because it was long, of my favorite Red Raven games. And I really like Red Raven games a lot. And I've played a few games since the last time I've done this. So I thought it was time for a new top 10. Now, before deciding to do this video, I looked up on YouTube to see if anybody besides Tom Vasel and myself have done a top 10 list for Red Raven games. And sadly, I couldn't find a single video with a top 10 list for Red Raven games besides Tom Vasel. So maybe this will inspire some of you guys who really like Red Raven games as much as I do to make your own top 10 video list of your top 10 favorite Red Raven games. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because I really like Red Raven games, and I also have played a lot of his games. Yes, 16 games is not a lot from a publisher, to be sure, but it's a lot considering he's only done like 26 different games, I think, that he's designed, that he has published, I mean. So it's not that many compared to other publishers that have like almost 100 games. So that's why there's probably not a lot of interest in making a top 10 list for Red Raven games. That's why only Tom Vasel and myself have done it. So that might be why, or it might just be because not everybody has played more than 10 games from Red Raven games. There might be a lot of people who really like a few games from Red Raven games, but haven't played even 10 of his games, right? So that might be another reason. But yeah, like I said, I really like Red Raven games, and it changed the hobby for me for sure. This publisher, this Ryan Laukat, he changed gaming for me as a person. One of his games anyway did. Started it all. So I'm gonna try to keep this video short. I did a showcase video that was rather long, and I wasn't expecting to get a lot of views on that because it was long, and I wasn't really there wasn't really anything to it, just showing what I had. This will be short, I hope. I want to keep this short. So this shouldn't be a long top 10 list. Hopefully most of you guys will be able to enjoy it since it'll be shorter. Let's hope that I can keep to that. So let me get started. We're already 3 minutes in, so I want to share with you my top 10 games. Starting with this little game called Isle of Night. Now, this came out, I want to say, last year, and it's just a little game. It's a really short game. It can be a very mean game, but it's so short that, it doesn't really matter because it's so short. So basically, it's like a set collection game. You're trying to collect sets of certain cards, like butterflies or spiders or, beetles, and then you might be trying to get yourself dragons or sea serpents or swords or spears. Now, all of these you can collect, and what's really cool is you draw 3 cards from the deck and you put it out on the table, and it's available to all players basically. But when it's your turn, you're going to take from one of those 3 cards. Now, you might not create 3 separate piles because some of the cards might be the same, so you'll just put them all together. And if they're all together, well, when it's your turn, since it's your turn, if you take from that pile, you don't get 1 card, you get the entire pile, which is beautiful for set collection, right? Three butterflies all together. I'm going to grab that for sure for set collection purposes, obviously. Now, in the game is kind of randomized because each of the items that you're collecting, each of the potential animals you're collecting or objects you're collecting could be changed victory point wise. They start randomly at a certain spot. Some of them could be as high as 5 points, and some of them could be as low as just 1 point for just 3 butterflies. And some of them, like I said, could be 5 points for 3 beetles. And So you're like, well, I'm obviously going for the beetles, not for the butterflies, because they're not worth anything. But the game has these cards that can move the cost of how many victory points you're going to get for what you're collecting. So you can like keep an eye on what your opponents are collecting, and you can be like, oh, wait a minute, they're going for those beetles. Let's move the beetles all the way down to 1, so that way they get only 1 point for every 3 beetles. So like I say, it can be a very mean game for sure. You can cause someone to lose the game because, you know, they had collected so many beetles. So you do want to while you're trying to get certain sets of cards, you do want to have some balance. You want to collect some of the other cards too. There's also just cards that give you straight victory points, so that's nice. And because the game can end very variable, because there's going to be lanterns out, and after a certain amount of lanterns have been taken, because they're just going to pop out as you play the game. After a certain amount of lanterns have been taken, then you're going to win the game. Then the game is going to be over, and the player who has the most points wins, obviously. But you could be one of those players who are like, I just need a couple more to make the most of this, so I'm not going for those lanterns. But another player could just be like, you know what? I'm going to end the game now by taking this lantern, and then the game is over. Why did you do that? I was so close. So, but like I said, it's a very short game. And I've already spent 3 minutes, I think, explaining what I like about this game. Just that funness of changing the equation of how many victory points stuff can be worth. You can be strategically wise and go for the cheaper stuff that nobody else wants because you're only getting 1 point for potentially whatever that is, and then later move it up so that way it's worth a ton instead, and win that way too. So there's some strategic choices in this game, and that's one of the reasons why I like it so much. So Dustin Duddle also designed this. I think this is his first design as well. So yeah, I just really love Isle of Night. That's why it's not my number 10. Okay, so like I said, that was a longer long, so let's move on. It was a little long. All right, so we'll try to keep this next one short. Okay, so this is City of Iron. This is my number 9. Now, this is a very unique deck building game because you have 2 decks that you can work on. But it's not just because you have 2 decks that you're working on, 2 separate decks, by the way, that you're working on. And you only start with like 2 cards. So it's not your normal deck building game where you have like, I don't know, 10 cards usually to start your hand off with. You don't even really have a starting hand, really. You just have 2 cards in the deck, and I think you draw 1 to begin the game with. Drawing cards from your deck into your hand is very hard to do. So, but when you get them, you can hold on to them as long as you want and then play them later. So that's the beauty of that. You don't discard them just because you didn't use them. You keep them from round to round until you decide, hey, I'm going to use it. And then you use it, and then it goes to the discard pile. And what's really cool is when you get a new card, you're going to keep it. So when you buy a new card to add to your deck, it goes straight into your hand to use when you want to, which is awesome, which is great, which, you know, not a lot of deck building games do. Some of them, you buy a card and it has to go into the discard pile, and it's going to be a while before you get to use it. That's the difference between some of the other deck building games for this one in comparison. So I really like the deck building aspect. And then theme-wise, I like the theme a lot, you know, because it's fantasy, and I love the hog folk, and I love the toads, and the Crusarians, and the humans are fine too. So I really like the theme of the game a lot. This is also the first game for Arzium that created the world of Arzium. This is the first one, the first official one, City of Iron. I also really like getting the various resources that you're trying to work towards. You're trying to basically have a monopoly on each of the different resources in the game. Not only do you get more money from them at the end of each round, but you're going to get more victory points for having the most of that resource at the end of the game. So you're going to want to do it for that reason as well. But you're also going to be building a town potentially, and you can get victory points by building your town. You can also build up a military deck to go and attack distant towns. So that's cool. And some of those towns give you resources to help further your chances of having a higher chance of having the most turnips or something like that, or the most octopus tentacles or something like that. So that's really cool. I like that a lot. And there's some exploration. You can discover new lands and then eventually build up your town that way by discovering new lands and stuff like that. So there's a lot to do with this game. There's a lot to love, and that's why City of Iron is my number 9, my 9th favorite Red Ribbon game. Okay, so we're 10 minutes in, we've got 2 games down. Let's keep this going, and hopefully it won't be super long. Okay, so my number 8 is Dingo's Dreams. This is basically bingo, but it's also a puzzle game, okay? So, Dingo, smart idea for sure. Now, theme-wise, it's kind of just kind of a cute little interesting theme, and the theme I like, but the mechanics are what I really like about this game because, like I said, it's bingo. You could literally win the game by basically basically what it is you have a grid of different terrains, and someone's going to draw a card, and they're going to call out a certain card, like, I don't know, bluegrass, okay? And then you're going to look for bluegrass and then flip it over to the animal side. And then you're trying to complete a pattern. There's a pattern that you're trying to complete, and there has to be an animal in each one of the targets within your grid that you're trying to work towards pattern-wise. And so the first half of the game is just calling out a certain, tile and flipping it over. And you could win that way. That's pure luck. You could win that way and be like, oh, dingo, I win. But most likely you'll win the strategic way, because the strategy way is after you call out that. Because what then you get to do is you have a tile that's not in that grid, and you're going to push it in, you're going to slide it in. It's going to cause everything else to move in that one direction you're sliding it in. And then the tile on the opposite end, whether it's, up, down, left, or right, is going to be popping out. And so you basically need to slide the animals around your grid until they match within the pattern you're trying to basically match. And that's how you win the game. And that is very strategic. And sometimes you're not even sure how you're going to get the pattern to work for you. Or sometimes you get the pattern close, but then you can't continue any further because you have to move one of the animals outside of the pattern in order to move another one into the pattern. And so sometimes it's almost counterproductive as you're trying to do that. And then you're like, oh man, there's no way I'm going to catch up now. But then, somebody could call out that one tile you need them to call out, and you win the game that way. So, you can win by luck, you can win by strategy. But it's such a short little game. You can easily play 3 games in like a half an hour easily of Dingo's Dreams, because like I said, very short game, and most of the puzzles, some of them can be pretty hard, but some of them can be pretty easy, and you can mix and match the easy and hard ones for the fun of it. I just really love Dingo's Dreams, and that's why Dingo's Dreams is my number 8, my 8th favorite game. Okay, so my 7th favorite game is Islebound. This is my 7th favorite game, Islebound. Now, this is a very unique game. I've heard many things like it's sort of like worker placement, and it sort of is, but it's not really your normal worker placement game. For one thing, you only have basically one worker, and your worker is your ship. And you're moving your ship around to various isles to take actions. And that's actually what you're doing. All of your actions that you can do, except for a few free actions you might have, all of the actions that you can do in Islebound is basically sending your ship to a spot to perform the action. Now, this is a building game. You're going to be building a town. Okay, well, in order to build a building in your town, you have to have somebody on your ship who is not sleeping that can build the building, but you also have to go to there's only one aisle, but you have to go to the one aisle that allows you to build buildings, and you also have to be able to pay a tax to do it unless you own the aisle, And money is very hard to come by in this game, which is why you want to either use diplomacy to take over Isle or attack an Isle with, well, with some of your mercenaries or sea serpents, basically. So one or the other, you're going to do one of those two things so that way you don't have to pay taxes all the time. Because, like I said, money is hard to come by. But man, it's just so much fun. Like I said, you're going to be going to various isles, and you have so much you have to do. There's crewmen on board that can help you do and perform certain actions, maybe even better than normal. And so that's why it's really hard to place it as a worker placement game, because you only have one worker and that's it. And then you're just moving to another location to do an action. And like I said, while there are resources to grab, like wood and fish, for instance, and you need those resources, especially the wood, to build buildings, you also have to collect other things like emeralds, which I haven't played the emerald version, but for me it was books when I first played this, to build buildings as well. And you have to go to all these places to gather resources, but unlike other worker placement games where you're gathering resources, you're just moving a ship around from place to place, you know? And unlike in other worker placement games, usually you can go to any spot you want to, unless there's somebody already there, basically, right? But in this game, you can't go everywhere. You have a ship and it's a large map. You can't get from this side of the map to this side of the map, most likely, in one turn. And so you're going to have to work your way over there, taking other actions or stopping at other places. Now, if you can't afford to take an action, there's a free action that lets you basically move your ship off to the side of an isle. And you can collect maybe something, I think it was 1 money or something like that, as a action that you could do if you can't pay the tax by visiting an isle, for instance. And of course, your crewmen, they have to be awake and alert to take actions, right? Well, when they take an action, they get sleepy. And when all of your crew are asleep, you need to go back to your home island or visit another island that has an inn so everybody can sleep and get a good night's sleep and be productive again as well. So it's, like I said, it's a very odd worker placement, very unique worker placement game, because all your actions are, well, in a sort of worker placement variation. And like I said, you can hire mercenaries and train sea serpents. I love the sea serpents. I love training sea serpents. Man, I just love Islebound a lot. And so that's why Islebound is my number 7. My number 7, right? I'm pretty sure it's my number 7. Let's see. City of Iron was my number 9. Dingo's Dream was 8. Islebound is 7. Yes, it is number 7. I don't have a pad of paper written down so I don't forget the numbers. So yeah, Islebound is my number 7. So moving on. So what is my 6th favorite game? My 6th favorite game is Rome. So Rome is basically sort of like an area control game. You have 3 adventurers that everyone starts with. Okay, they're different looking to make it more, interesting for the players playing the game. But the patterns are all the same. And you're gonna each turn you're gonna choose an adventurer, and that adventurer is gonna have a pattern that you're gonna follow, and then put down discs on a large grid of cards connected. And when a card is completely full, okay, well, somebody is going to get that card. Whether it's either going to be the player who has the most discs on it that's going to get it, and then if there's any other players that are on that card, they'll get like a consolation prize of 1 money or something like that. But if there's a tie for it, then there's going to be a little bidding going on to see who's going to get that. But regardless, one person is going to get that card. They're going to flip it over. It's going to be somebody that they've rescued in this land of Rome, in this land of Arzium, this part of Arzium, where everyone's got this sleeping sickness. And so some humor of those who you've waken up from their sleepwalking. And then they're going to have a pattern, and they're going to add, that's going to be a very unique pattern, all of them fairly unique, and that's going to help you place out even more discs, making the game go a little faster. And it's the player who has the most victory points, but it's going to end when you have a certain amount of adventurers that are basically in your team. So like I said, it's area control. I love it a lot. And that's why Rome is my number 6. Very simple, little easy area control game. Rome, my number 6th. My 6th favorite game. Okay, so my 5th favorite game is Mega Land. So this is a push your luck game, okay? In this game, you're going to want to go into a dungeon, and you're going to basically get resources as you go down the levels of the dungeon. But if you get defeated by a monster, then you lose everything that you got. And so before proceeding down the levels of the dungeon, you have to decide, should I stay or should I go? If you leave, then you get to take everything you found with you. But if you stay, you're pushing your luck to get even more treasures and hopefully, getting ahead of all the other players. And that's kind of the idea. You're trying to get ahead of all the other players who left earlier, but it's also, like I said, dangerous because you could lose it all and then you'll be behind everybody else. And that's kind of the fun element of the game, is just going into the dungeon itself. That is super fun. That's what I love about this game. It's just an amazing part of the game. It's so much fun. And then, some of the buildings that you can build. So you can build some buildings basically to get coins, which can help you win the game. That you need coins to win the game, a certain amount, and to end the game, and then have the most to win the game. And so you're going to be building buildings to do that, but you need different looking resources to build buildings to do that. Or you can spend similar resources to get hearts so you can survive longer in the dungeon too. So that's nice. And then some of the buildings will give you jump tokens, and you can choose to use a jump token before we reveal the next level. And sometimes, you get a safe zone and you've wasted your jump token and then it's gone for good. Sometimes you use the jump token and it's a bunch of bats and they fly, so you can't jump over something that flies. So you still receive the damage. But once in a while, once in a blue moon, you get to jump the red serpent that does the most damage, and that's just amazing when someone pulls that off. It doesn't matter if it's one of your opponents that pulls it off. You're just amazed. It's just so much fun. Just seeing what's going to happen to your opponents and to yourself. That's what makes this game an experience. That's what a lot of Ryan Laukat's games do. They're about the experience. That's what makes this game so great. So that's why Mega Land is my number 5. Okay, so my number 4 has dropped down my list. This was my most favorite game, and so now it's my number 4. And that is Above and Below. This changed gaming for me. This is the game that changed gaming for me. I won't go into the specifics, but it did. This was my first game that I ever played from that Ryan Laukat designed. This is what introduced me to Arzium, and this was the very first game that I ever played. I just was blown away by the artwork. But I'm more than that. I was blown away by the experience of the game. I love the encounter book. I love going down into the giant cavern and just, seeing what's going to happen down there, Sometimes that's all I care about with the game. I mean, there's some set collection you can do to try to win the game. You can get victory points by building certain buildings, sure. So there's some mechanics involved in the game. But for me, I just want to experience what the game has to offer. That's why I really love Above and Below. It's an amazing game, and that's why it's still in my top 10. That's why it's my number 4, because it's an experience. This is all about the experience for me. It's a great game. That's why it's my number 4, Above and Below. Okay, so my number 3, my third favorite game, is usually at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to Red Raven games. I think it's the most underrated Red Raven game. And many people who have played this game, just don't like it. There's not very many people out there that like this game. And that is Deep Vents. So this is my third favorite game. Now, originally it was my second favorite game, but it's been pushed down by another game. So, I still like this a lot. This was the second game I played from Red Raven Games, and I absolutely loved this, okay? You are building an ecosystem down in the depths of the ocean, and there's in the depths of the ocean, there's a lot of dangerous, animals down there. And so, thematically it makes sense to attack other players with these dangerous animals, like giant squids, It just makes sense. It can be a very nasty game sometimes, sure. I'm not going to dispute that. But I think for the most part it can be mitigated. The damage that you can do it to an opponent's is something you can mitigate because you can get protection from shells. And sometimes having a lot of shells pretty much prevents other players from bothering to attack you or attack in general because they're not going to do much damage. So they just figure, let's hold on to what we have and just try to get as much from it as we can. And at some point you definitely want to do that because you're trying to build an ecosystem, and that ecosystem is trying to produce resources which are going to be your victory points to win the game. And so at some point you're going to have to be like, well, I shouldn't be attacking anymore. I should just focus on building this tile up as much as I possibly can before it's over. So that way I can get the most victory points out of it. And that's kind of the idea. There's definitely a more strategy to this game, a little more depth than some of the other small games like this, for sure. And there's definitely a lot more strategy than you would think, for sure. When to attack, when not to attack. Keeping an eye on what your opponents are doing is key if you're planning on attacking them. You need to know how much damage you can potentially do to them. And you're only going to do that if you're keeping an eye on what they're doing. So, like I said, this game has a lot of interaction going on. Not just simply attacking, but you also need to know when to attack, because you need to know that, like I said, oh, that person, he's going to get 6 damage from this attack, but that person over there is only going to get 1 because of what he has in his ecosystem. So you have to balance it out and think when the best time to attack is. Maybe that guy will get something else that will increase the damage he could get. Who knows? But yeah, I really love Deep Fence. That's why it's my number 3. Awesome game. Awesome little game. Best little game I've ever played on planet Earth. Okay, so we're almost 30 minutes into this video, so that's about the target range I was hoping for, so it's not going to go over that by much. So my second favorite game is one of the newest games that Ryan Laukat has designed, and that is Creature Caravan. Oh, there's so much I love about this game, so much. I love the dice placement of it, right? I like placing out the dice at certain spots for actions, rolling the dice to hopefully get some good numbers so I can take the best actions I possibly can, and getting to re-roll one time, which is pretty nice sometimes if you have a bad first roll. Of course, sometimes you have an okay roll and you roll again and it's even worse. So you have to mitigate, should I do that or not? But one of the things I like about this game is there's so many ways to play this game. You can be the player who goes all the way to the town of Eastry and get tons of points that way, versus a player who didn't want to do that and decided to spend more time going to all of the different areas on the map, getting treasure chests and getting resources and victory points that way. You can fight these lava monsters and get points for taking them on, for fighting them. And they're not even worth very many minus points if you don't fight them. So it's not a game that forces you to fight them, because they're only worth minus 1 point at the end of the game for each one you didn't defeat, which isn't that bad. Unless you encountered 10 of them and didn't fight any of them, then maybe, yeah, that could be bad. But for the most part, it's not bad. So it doesn't force you to fight anything, but you're also basically building a caravan. You're hiring people to join your caravan, or various creatures to join your caravan. I really like the red serpent that you can get. That's amazing. Or a bat. I love the bats. But yeah, there's an engine. This is an engine building game. So you're going to be building an engine, and there's various ways you can build that engine. You can get cards that give you bonuses every round, or bonuses when you play a card. That's part of the engine you can do. You can play cards that give you more dice to use. You get 5 dice, but there's cards that can make it so you can roll 6 dice every round. And you can increase that to 7 to 8 if you play a lot of those types of cards. So there's a lot of variety in card play. of cards you can play. And because because you have an unlimited hand, okay, you can draw as pretty much as many cards as you want because you have an unlimited hand. But then as free actions, you can discard all the cards you don't want for more resources. So that's nice, right? I like doing that. Coins are hard to get, in this game. And so, like, if you discard 3 cards at once, you can get yourself a coin. Because some of the cards, you have to pay coins to play them. Or you can trade in coins for bread and victory points. So that's cool. You can trade in bags for bread and victory points, too. So that's nice. So you're collecting bread and bags and coins and occasionally a fruit to basically make some of your actions cheaper. Because like I said, this is an engine building game. So some of the cards you're getting have worker placement spots on them, or I should say dice placement spots on them, giving you even more actions that you can do on your turn besides just the few that you start with. You can have a whole lot of decisions for dice placement. I love that a lot. Like I said, there's so much to love about this game. And that's why Creature Caravan is my second favorite game. Okay, the next one I probably won't be holding in my hands very long because it's heavy. So this is my most favorite game. It's been my most favorite game since I got it. And will probably continue to be my most favorite game. And that is Empires of the Void 2. So Empires of the Void 2 is an Alien game. And I've talked about this many times. This is a game that I talk about a lot. So let's see. What do I like about it? Well, I like the aliens. I like all of the aliens. Not the humans very much, but I like all of the aliens that you can play as. Okay? That's amazing. The artwork is amazing. The aliens' each alien has their own abilities and things like that that you can unlock as you play the game. That's amazing. There's many things you can do in this game, okay? You can visit other planets. And those planets have various alien races that live on these planets. So that's amazing. Getting to know them, getting to know what they like, getting to know what they hate. Yes, some aliens hate other aliens and things like that. And some aliens are helping out other aliens in other worlds and things like that. There's pick up and deliver in this game. You can pick up something and deliver it to another planet. That's a mechanic in the game. And it's also thematic too. There's some flavor text going on, some information on what you're delivering that makes it even more enjoyable. Oh, I'm kidnapping the president of one of the planets and I'm taking him to another planet because that planet doesn't like them, Or I'm delivering eyeballs to another planet because that planet, that alien race just eats that type of eyeball from that type of animal that's not found on that alien world. Something like that. Weird stuff like that, for sure. And a lot more other interesting things going on. And then there's events, okay? Now, there's several different events for each planet. We only play with one event per planet. And there's so many different events that can happen. And like I said, very thematic, these events. Very interesting, but a lot of them are very mechanical too, that are included into the game that happen as the game goes on. It's so much fun. I just love Empires of the Void 2. There's several ways you can play this game, but you can basically form relationships with all these alien worlds. And then if you have the most influence with them, because if you've done some diplomacy with them, you can basically hire aliens from their planet to help you with your spaceship, with your military, basically, to make it easier to attack other alien worlds. So you're going to pick and choose what alien worlds that you want to form alliances with and what alien worlds you're going to attack. Now, if you're like me, you're always going to go for one alien world that you like the most and be allies with them as much as you can. But the game gives you cards that you have, that you start with and that you draw, that incentivize you to form relationships with certain aliens because they give you more influence and more rewards if you do so. So there is that, but you're not obligated to go that route. Like I said, you can also attack alien worlds, and then by attacking them, you get to build on their planets. Like I said, you're doing a lot of building in this game too. There's technologies you can learn and things like that. There's a lot to do in this game. I love everything about this game. It's perfection. This game is perfection. Empires of the Void 2 is a perfect game. This is a 10 out of 10 for me. It always has been. It's an amazing game, and that's why it's my number one. Empires of the Void 2. Amazing, fun game. So thank you guys for watching my top 10 favorite Red Raven games. Hopefully this wasn't too long for you. I tried to keep it as short as possible. Try not to get carried away. I did get carried away in those first couple of games, but I think I kept most of my games short and sweet. So, thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you guys again next time.